A weirdly common problem in Final Fantasy XIV, possibly especially because of the age of the game combined with the amount of changes the game has got over the years, is that some players will claim that something is true without ever checking if it actually is, either because they assumed it is the way they think or because it was like that at some point. In this video, I will highlight some more misconceptions and use them as examples as to how you can test your claims and understandings of the game, so you also know how to science stuff in Final Fantasy XIV. Number 1. Tenacity increases healing done by yourself to yourself. It is commonly accepted that tenacity is essentially like determination, except it scales slower, but also has a damage reduction component. In the previous video on the subject of testing claims, I demonstrated that tenacity does not increase healing received specifically by showing that changing your tenacity didn't impact the healing received by another player to you. This apparently then gave rise to the alternate hypothesis, that tenacity only increases your healing done to yourself, which is actually even easier to disprove. With Paladin, cast Clemency on yourself a bunch of times to check the average healing you receive. Then find some other player. In fact, it probably doesn't even have to be a player. You could do this in duty support and then cast Clemency on them a bunch of times. Do make sure to check they don't have some sort of effect that would increase your healing on them. The healing done by Clemency to your target should be the same as the healing you did to yourself. This suggests that tenacity increases your healing done to everything. Just to be sure to leave this subject complete, you can also prove that tenacity increases healing done in general by simply casting Clemency on yourself with tenacity gear, and then replacing the tenacity with different stats without changing your strength or determination. You should notice that the healing amount changes. Number 2. Salted Earth, Slipstream and Doton are considered pets, and so do pet potency damage, and also scale with raid buffs real time. This is an understandable misconception, given that many of the quote-unquote glorified dots style pets and placed AoEs have this kind of effect. Earthly Star does, for example. However, the placed AoEs that have this pet potency effect tends to have only that effect. For example, Earthly Star only strikes once, and you can directly command it to, like a pet. Salted Earth, Slipstream and Doton do damage over time, and in the case of 2 of them, you can do something to interact with it. As such, we might have to assume these are working on different rules. First, we can test whether Salted Earth actually does pet potency. Salted Earth ticks for 50 potency per tick. I can use Stalwart Soul outside of combos for 100 potency attack. If Salted Earth does not do pet potency damage, it will tick for approximately half of the damage of Stalwart Soul in this context. Add to this, Salt and Darkness should do 5 times as much damage to the primary target, and about 2.5 times as much on secondary targets. Ultimately, as long as it does at least around as much and not significantly less, we prove that it does not do pet potency damage. Next, the claim about raid buffs. I will counter with a different hypothesis instead. Doton, Slipstream and Salted Earth snapshot your buffs, but scale real time with your target's buffs and debuffs. What does that mean? Well, let's test it. It means that if a Dark Knight gains Darkside first and then uses Salted Earth, it will do more damage for the full duration even if Darkside ends. If, on the other hand, you use Salted Earth first and then gain Darkside, then Salted Earth will not benefit. This much does make sense, since Salted Earth can know all of the buffs and debuffs you have before you cast it. Why would it then scale real time with the target's buffs and debuffs? Well, if for example you place down Salted Earth, a ninja used Mug on the target, and then the target entered Salted Earth, the AoE wouldn't possibly be able to know which one was used first, Salted Earth or Mug, without specifically checking for Mug, knowing its expected duration and thus knowing whether Salted Earth had been around for longer or not. Simply because Salted Earth is never certain to be directly connected to the target, it has to take the target's status real time at face value. This can be demonstrated by placing Salted Earth and then having a ninja use Mug on your target and observing the damage increases. And also, for the reverse, have Mug on the target, place Salted Earth and observe that the damage drops again when Mug ends. This can be similarly demonstrated for Summoner's Slipstream and Ninja's own Doton. I should also add that Salt and Darkness and Hollow Nozuchi appear to function in an interesting way, in that they scale with buffs and debuffs like our normal attack action, in that they snapshot yours and your target's state immediately on use. That would suggest their functionality is like a placed AoE that strikes immediately, similar to Blue Mage's Eruption. However, the attack is always automatically snapped to the position of Salted Earth and Doton respectively. To summarize, Salted Earth, Slipstream and Doton snapshot your situation on cast, but scale real time with your target's situation. Salt and Darkness and Hollow Nozuchi are effectively normal attacks, just with a wacky targeting system. I will, however, as the mathematician that I am, leave the demonstration for Doton, Hollow Nozuchi and Slipstream as an exercise for the viewer. Number 3. Spamming Holy will eat into its total stun duration, making it shorter than its maximum potential. This can be easily tested by, yes, you guessed it, spamming Holy at striking dummies. The way that diminishing returns work in Final Fantasy XIV is that if you apply a debuff that has diminishing returns to something, they build resistance. This resistance sticks around for exactly 1 minute after the debuff is initially applied. That means if you used, say, sleep on someone, then they would potentially sleep for 30 seconds, and then 30 seconds later, their resistance will have dropped and you can sleep them again for full duration. If you instead sleep them immediately again after they wake up, it will only have half effect, and will refresh and upgrade the resistance, making your next sleep only last a quarter of the duration. And again, refreshing and upgrading the resistance, making it completely impervious to sleep for 1 minute. Stun works just the same. That means that at maximum capacity, Holy should stun for 4, 2 and then 1 second for a maximum of 7. So that is our target. Simply spamming Holy with no buffs or anything will cause the stun to appear at 4 seconds, and your second Holy will snapshot that your target already had more stun than you are trying to apply, and because you're trying to replace a debuff with an inferior copy, because it is shorter, the enemy instead resists it. The third Holy will of course stun everything for 2 seconds, and assuming your fourth Holy comes out fast enough, enemies will again resist it. The fifth Holy will then stun everything for 1 second. However, there is a very strange interaction that happens if you use Presence of Mind and Holy spam. Watch very carefully and notice that the first Holy applies 4 seconds of stun, and the second Holy refreshes it to 4 seconds again. After that, the third and fourth Holy does nothing, and then the fifth and sixth Holy both apply a 1 second stun. What? That would add up to 8 seconds of stun. I have no idea how that works, but ultimately I suppose that still means that Holy's duration isn't negatively impacted by aggressively spamming Holy, right? This weird interaction actually comes up again in regards to using Holy into Swiftcast Holy, which does appear to negatively impact the duration. The first Holy naturally stuns all the enemies for 4 seconds. The Swiftcasted Holy then appears to, similar to before, set the stun back to 4 before it reaches 2 seconds. After this stun ends, the subsequent stun will be 1 second and only once. This leads to a total stun duration of 4 plus somewhere between 1 and 2, but not 2, plus 1, which would be less than 7 seconds. Switching the order, so you Swiftcast the first one, allows the full 4 seconds to pass before the second stun even comes out, leading to the expected outcome of 7 seconds of stun. Finally, if you are curious, using Swiftcast Holy into Presence of Mind Holy spam causes the second stun to be resisted, the third and fourth stun will both last 2 seconds, and then the fifth stun will last 1 second, leading to a total duration of 9 seconds. I have to admit that I'm very confused by this result. However, the ultimate conclusion is that at worst, spamming out Holies will lose you less than 1 second of stun, and in most cases, it will always give you the stun amount you'd expect, but can sometimes lead to more stun than normal. I have no idea how that works, but my best guess is that Holy has a unique exception for its stun to make sure that it works right when you spam it. Number 4. Walking Dead's effect requires that you receive healing equating to 100% of your HP to turn into Undead Rebirth. Overhealing does not count. So what this claim means is that if a Dark Knight used Living Dead, died, and then a White Mage used Benediction on them, for example, and the Dark Knight took no further damage, they would still die from Walking Dead, since they didn't actually receive 100% of their HP in actual healing, since they were at 1 HP. Meaning that even if Benediction healed them for 100% of their HP, 1 point of connected healing would be missing, since overhealing doesn't count according to the claim. How do we test this? Grab your favorite friend who has White Mage at least at level 50, higher will be easier. Then find a level appropriate mob, consider removing equipment to make it easier for it to hurt you. Then make sure that Living Dead activates and turns into Walking Dead, and then make sure you don't take further damage and have the White Mage use Benediction on you. Observe here that the buff turns into Undead Rebirth, suggesting that Walking Dead resolved successfully, which means that overhealing does count. Or that you never needed to be healed for 100% of your HP exactly, but rather 100% minus 1. Either option works. It is still true that you can't die from Walking Dead not resolving correctly because you took 0 damage during it, disproving the original claim. Number 5. Black Mage auto-attacks are quote-unquote hard-coded to always do 1 damage. The 4 other claims were a bit long to test, so let's finish with a short and sweet one. I am not sure if you're ready for how incredibly easy this is to disprove. This is the Heavensward edition of Stone Sky Sea. It happens to have a level 60 sync option, so you can test at level 60. I have used this in many of my job guide videos to showcase. So, let's sync a Black Mage down to level 60. Note that before we enter, we have 174 strength. After entering, we have 97 strength. Now, watch this. A hit of around 38, right? I'd say that's pretty good. We can go even further. Let's go to the Stormblood Stone Sky Sea and test at level 70. Here we have 130 strength. Yet our auto attacks are closer to 28 now. Strange. Let's try and go to the Shadowbringers Stone Sky Sea. Here we have 152 strength and our auto attacks do like 10 damage. Do you see where I'm going with this? If we reverse back a little bit, we can see that at level 50 with 89 strength, the auto attacks are closer to 48. And then if we reverse even further, we discover that we have found the peak. At level 37 with 56 strength, we auto attack for around 25. Now why does this happen? That is because the way stat scaling works in Final Fantasy XIV is that as you level up, you need more stats to get the same value. There are of course multipliers here and there, which leads you to do more damage despite that. This is the reason why secondary stats like crit still have value at lower level, despite you needing like 9.5 points of it to gain just plus 0.1% chance and damage from it at level 90. At level 15, a single point of crit gives you 0.2%. This works the same for strength, in that you kind of need a minimum amount to get over 0 damage, and as Black Mage levels up, their strength simply fails to keep up after level 50 and slowly but surely falls behind. No one really cares that much about this information beyond trivia though, since Black Mage auto attacks never were that particularly important anyway. Now, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support me and my channel, you can let the YouTube algorithm know by liking the video, leaving a comment, subscribing, sharing, and hitting the bell to get notified when next I post a video. And if you want to give even more support than that, you can also become a member of the channel like these wonderful people here. Fun fact, to actually increase the damage of your Black Mage's auto attacks, you would need more strength. But what gear would you use for that? The Heavensward accessories can be used by any job, so you could get strength from there. That then leaves your armor. The armor awarded for winning 100 times in Seal Rock PvP is item level 160 and grants strength. It also comes with a full outfit, leaving just your weapon as the final problem. And I am pretty confident there does not exist a single Black Mage weapon with strength on it.